launch?
No, I don't really have much of an introduction.
Okay.
These are from an imaginary short story collection called Really Stupid Stories About People Doing Weird Things. So it's just a few really short stories. Hopefully you won't get too bored. The first one's called The Story Monster.
Okay, can you just hang on just a second?
I'll pause.
Okay, go ahead.
The Story Monster. So a man hates to read. He hates to read and he hates to see people reading. Whenever he's at work and someone is reading the paper, a trashy paperback novel, he likes to taunt them until they put it down. Reading is not functional. It is a waste of time. He doesn't even read contracts or anything like that. He just signs his name at the bottom after asking whoever is offering the contract if they can give it to him in a nutshell. Once he discovered how much he hated reading, he realized how ubiquitous words were. Ubiquitous and meaningless. One night, as he crawls in bed next to his browbeaten, mostly illiterate wife, she was feral when he located her in the wilds of the island of South. A giant man enters the room. Actually, it's a monster. Huge and hairy, not wearing any clothes. The man, who, aside from coming completely unhinged around words, is not a very confrontational man. He thinks if he lies there quietly, the monster will go away. But the monster doesn't go away. It takes a deep breath and sits on the edge of the bed. It smells rancid, like sewage and something unidentifiable, but worse. The man tries to nudge the monster off the bed, but the monster is way too large to move. Suddenly, the monster lurches into a story. It is a story unlike anything the man has ever heard, and the monster's voice, for belonging to such a giant, reeking beast, is smooth and relaxing. The man finds he likes the story, and he likes the monster's voice. He stops trying to shove the monster off the bed, rolls over onto his back, and enjoys the story. He is asleep by the time the monster finishes it, and upon waking the next morning, the man realizes he is okay with falling asleep, not knowing how the story ended. Because it wasn't really the kind of story where the ending was important. Surprisingly, the man wants the monster to come back. That night, the monster returns. He comes before the man's wife is asleep. She, not understanding that this wretched beast is here only for their entertainment, panics and begins throwing objects at the monster. The monster cowers in a corner of the room, but he doesn't leave. The man's wife asks him to make the monster leave, but he tells her he is not going to do that. She doesn't understand his explanation and hurls herself at him, claws bared, trying to gouge out his eyes. The man fights her off with a pillow and tells her it's over, pulling out the divorce papers he has kept in his nightstand since marrying the woman. She signs her name, and he gives her a one-way ticket to Semp. She angrily drags all of her clothes from the closet and puts them on, stuffs her shoes into the clothes, spits on the monster, and leaves. The man never sees her again. He crawls into bed, pulls the covers up to his chin, turns out the light, and pats the side of the bed, telling the monster it's okay. The monster stands up, sits down on the bed, and begins telling another beautiful story. This cycle continues for several months. Then the monster stops coming. The man is confused. He feels lost. He doesn't know what to do. Now he has no wife and no monster. No stories. One day, quite by accident, he's buying some butane and condoms from a newsstand. He discovers the monster has written a book. He is curious. He wonders what stories are in there. Are they the ones the monster told him? He thinks about buying the book and then thinks better of it. Maybe, he tells himself, the monster will come back someday. This next one is called Divorce. A man makes a wife out of stained sheets and old pillows. Being made from the things of sleep, she immediately dozes off. The man walks over to the window of their second-story bedroom. It's snowing outside. It's been snowing for quite some time. The snow nearly reaches the window. The man looks back at his wife. He tries to wake her up, but can't. He's lonely. He wants to play in the snow. He opens the window and throws himself out, plunging deep into the snow and freezing to death. The wife wakes up to the frigid air rushing in through the window. She slams it shut and goes back to sleep. The next morning, the dead man strolls into the house. His wife is enjoying a breakfast of sawdust and gasoline. "You're dead," she says, not at all alarmed. "Yep," the man says. "Best get you into the freezer." "Yep." The man enters the spacious freezer willingly. The wife tosses a case of beer and a television in there with him. He stays there for 3 years. The woman eventually marries a bed. He likes to sleep as much as she does, although when awake he is a little lazier than she prefers. The frozen man leaves the freezer and confronts the woman. "How could you?" he says. "You was dead." The man bounces on the bed. The bed groans but doesn't fight back. "I'm leaving," the man shouts. "It's the middle of summer. You'll melt. Like hell." The man bangs the door shut behind him and walks out into the neighborhood street. He heads for the local bar, thinking maybe he can meet another woman who will put him up. It isn't long before he begins sweating profusely. The sweat doesn't stop. Embarrassed, He ducks into an alleyway where he slides down a wall and quietly sweats himself into non-existence.